mean, because they already said, you know, they're contractors while they're down there. You know, the job really.
Now everyone's water. So I'm afraid you're going. Yes.
Double-edged sword.
Just turn that one over there, you know, one standing, one sitting. And over here you go.
All right, it is 3:00, and I'm calling this workshop of November 26th, 3 p.m. to order. And we do have a quorum, all the commissioners here. And item number 2, discussion and presentation over the International Fire Code. Who's taking the ball on that? Did you do that?
Oh. So, good afternoon, for doing.
This is John Davis, our fire marshal.
So I had some discussion in the past with the court, and I do have to make a recession on some comments that I made. And I think I've had some comments about adjacent counties being 150,000 in population. If we were joining a county with that size, we could adopt International Fire Code. And I have to rescind that comment. It's actually 250,000 is that population. And that can be found under the local government code, chapter 233. It's actually 233. It's under fire code in unincorporated areas 233.061. Authority to adopt and enforce fire code. The commissioner's court of a county with population over 250,000. Or a county adjacent to a county with a population of over 250,000 may adopt a fire code and rules necessary to administer and enforce the fire code. The commissioner's court or a municipality in the county may contract with one another for the administration and enforcement of the fire code, which means you can have interlocal agreements with one another between municipalities and the county there. So that being said, Kaufman currently is at 185, just under 186 in population, 186,000. Smith County is just under 246,000. So they're not quite there either. I don't know what, I don't think Henderson County is going to even touch them, and I'm not sure where Hunt County They may be closer to Smith County range, but I don't know for sure. So we're not there to even consider it, local government code, the same law basically on that. So which leads us to, chapter 2 or 352, county fire protection, which is where we're at now, where, excuse me, it talks about essentially, basically, we have the code standards that we can enforce is what the state has adopted. And that doesn't take an adoption by the court. It's automatically written into law with local government code. So when the state increases votes to increase their code standard, we automatically follow suit. Any county does. So they're currently with NFPA 1 and 101 under the 2021 versions or additions of those two code standards there. And so when they increase to that, we automatically make it. That's the most current standard there out there. So we go with those NFPA standards for being able to go and do inspections, and we hold buildings, commercial, and it even states in there the types of buildings or occupancies, which is essentially commercial buildings, multifamily housing, and then the like nursing homes and corrugated living centers and things like that are the types of buildings that we would do inspections on. And that's where we're at with fire code stuff.
Are those inspections just by request pretty much? Or do we schedule them?
No, it gives the county authority, the commissioner's court authority to, I'm sorry for plumbing through a little bit. It does give the commissioner, as we already have in place, it gives the commissioner's court authority to set a permit fee and for us to be able to permit to calls for review for plans and to charge for a permit and issue permits and to do inspections for that. So we can, and of course people can call when they need the inspections done and request them as well, and then be charged with fee for it also.
Would that require a certificate of occupancy, and all inspections to be completed before they could get the CO?
I do believe it covers that in here, that a CO should be issued to bit of compliance is what it's not a certificate of occupancy. It would be called a certificate of compliance, be issued from the fire marshal's office showing that the building has became compliant.
So basically what you're saying in the local government code 352 is that we wouldn't be able to adopt the International Fire Code until we were either at 250 or a surrounding county was at 250.
Yes, sir.
Is that based on the last census or the current?
What's current?
What I found, it was saying as of 2023 numbers. It was giving me those projections of that, so it wasn't 2020 census numbers, it was
We got to wait for
2023
the
estimates.
23rd. We just go
Right.
by the current census.
I really don't know, I couldn't give you an honest answer on to know if we have to have census data to support that, or if we can just go off of what an estimated population is.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
what are the differences between current chapter 352 and the International Fire Code? Kind of not, I know it's a big question, but what are the differences in requirements?
Well, so chapter 352 is not fire code.
Okay,
That's not any fire code at all. That is just local government code that basically it defines county fire protection. So there's a lot in there, which is basically establishing volunteer fire departments, fire marshal's office within the county. It establishes, types of fires that the fire marshal shall investigate, we shall investigate. And things like that is along with, doing inspections on buildings.
I think his question was, what's the major differences between NFPA 101 and
The 1 and 101.
Yeah.
I don't know, can I invite Mr. Allen up here? This is the Assistant State Fire Marshal, Charles Allen. Y'all may remember him, he served as fire marshal for the county in the past as well. So the state has adopted 1 and 101 of the 2021 editions. I'm very familiar with the IFC versions because I'm a municipal guy, and by my base of training and everything. So I don't have a lot. I haven't found a whole lot of variations between the two. I know in the IFC adoptions, they're amendable. So I can have amendments and I can make changes to them based on my municipality or my jurisdiction. So I can have, I don't want this piece, or I want to rephrase it to say, instead of 300 feet, I want it to be 250 feet or something like that. To my understanding, there's no amendments that we make to the NFPA 1 and 101 as a county.
Correct. If you got to a point where you could adopt those codes, you could make amendments to those.
To the NFPA?
Yes.
Okay.
We only have a couple little amendments in ours, but it's tied to other NFPA standards that are tied into 1 and 101. So what happens is when we adopt NFPA 1, which is the fire code, and NFPA 101 is the life safety code, we adopt them in their entirety. And then we also, by the rule, anything that's in chapter 2 of either one of those standards, they reference other NFPA standards, like 855 is dealing with electrical storage system facility. It's a reference standard. We would fall under the 2020 edition of the NFPA 855, particularly is what y'all are addressing right now. So.
And how would the 855 help us in with the current battery storage facility that's being proposed in Van Zandt County?
It would have to be built in to those code standards.
And since the state has adopted those and they're building in the state, they have to comply with the standards of 855, or does the county need to do something specific?
No, because by default, because you're not at that 250,000 or adjoining, you can use our codes that are adopted by the state to enforce your fire marshal can go out and enforce our codes in the unincorporated areas of Van Zandt County.
So if they were to lock the gate and say, Sean, you can't come out, then we could effectively just shut them in.
You could get an administrative search warrant and work it through the court system.
What is there in that standard that they may not already be made?
I do not know because I have not dug into what y'all are dealing with or what the concerns are. We know that those types of facilities are toxic or dangerous. We do see some legislation coming down this in the 89th session. I just want to address some of these concerns that constituents have put out there. For what they are, that I do not know. And we're also under the understanding that 855 in the 2026 edition may be changing some of their standards of what's needed in those storage systems.
So is there something that the county can do that would give us the authority to tell them you can't do that here? You can't put a battery storage facility within 5 miles of a residence.
I would have to refer you to your legal counsel. Because if this was in an area where I was the authority having jurisdiction, we have no control over where they build or what they do. We would enforce our codes during the inspection process to make sure that they were code compliant. And if they were, then we would address those concerns. They would have to bring it up to code compliance, or we would issue a fire marshal order and shut the doors.
And so when you say bring it up to our codes, you're talking about the NFPA 855.
Yes.
So that's in effect, that's what your recommendation is that throughout the process, our fire marshal here go out and inspect from time to time, perhaps, go out and inspect the installation and the placement and the wiring and everything associated up to NFPA 855 standards.
Up to the adopted standards of the state of Texas.
And that standard gives them the authority to prove the design before it goes in and follow up to see that it meets.
I believe that's in y'all's,
The design of
establishing
the design of the fire protection, not the design of the,
Exactly, the 855
Yeah.
part of it. We know what fire protection that standard has.
It'd
have to be
So
built.
855 is gonna spell out, it's gonna kind of guide you on. If it's gonna be up to this size or larger, it's gonna require this. If it's smaller than this, it'll require just that. It'll give you the parameters as to the extent of the fire protection system requirements. So that's when they submit their plans of, we want to build Disney World size battery installation, or we want to build this 7-Eleven size battery, so it, based on what they submit for drawings, is what we expect the whole. That's why we need submittals.
Do we have a mechanism now by which we can request submittals, or do we, at this point, with what you know that Van Zandt has in place, would their submittals just be voluntary? Is there something that we need to do as a commissioner's court in order to require the submittals?
It's really already in place
It's in place
with
with the current, with us adopting or having by default that code, those are in place.
yeah, that's already been an understood thing that, when something that's just happening, we need to request for the plans and go through the approval process with it, do the review and then issue the permit.
that's even if we don't have a permitting. Once we find out about it, only thing a permit does is it lets us know about it. But once we find out about it, they're locked in. He can call it, hey, I want to see all your plans and everything. Whether it's required by one anybody.
Since our last workshop, when they agreed to work with you, have they been working with you? Have you been able to get this?
We have not received anything. Now, we have had, today, they have met and had a demonstration with the fire chiefs and some of their administration of local fire departments to kind of give a explanation of how things are gonna be with them and answer a few of their questions. The same gentleman that spoke on the NFPA 855 before, that was their in-house fire protection engineer. For lack of better words, I'm not sure what his exact title
He's with
is.
Fluent, he's with the battery manufacturer.
Okay, so that's what we've had so far. But as far as any submittal of anything, we have not had anything given to us.
Were you at that meeting today?
No, sir.
Mr. Allen.
Yes.
You had said that by the state standard, which we automatically fall under 855, if he does not receive this documentation, we could pursue.
That would be your legal counsel, which direction you want to go.
And administrative hold.
But there are options that we.
Yeah, you should have that built into your establishment of the office, what that process is. I know we did a fee schedule back many blue moons ago when I created the office from infancy. So I don't know what's been done since I left in 2016. So just looking at that, seeing what if there's a review process, an appeal process to facilitate that. And then if it was in an area where I was the authority having jurisdiction, we would try to work with them. If they decided they didn't want to work no more, then we would go before the Attorney General's office and get a fire marshal order and close the door. We don't have the mechanism at the state to write tickets for failing to come into compliance. Our only mechanism is a fire marshal. And we will work with you.
That's good. So if we need to, we can work with you. If we can't come to our own meeting, that's all our current state code will get us that ability.
Yeah, we can assist any way we can. I mean, it's nice that the county maintained that fire marshal position after I left. Because I only had 15 inspectors scattered across the state. And nearly, I think we talked earlier, 190 counties do not have a fire marshal. So by default, we're the authority in those areas, but we do assist locals on a daily basis with situations like this.
You're welcome. That's answered.
All right,
Good question. I'm understanding right now, they have not given the commissioners for the actual design for the facility. Right. But under current code, you can ask for those designs.
Design of the fire suppression system. Not the design of their whole complex.
Okay, you're talking about the design of the fire suppression system in the singular form or the total quantity of fire suppression systems? Each battery facility has its own.
Which is optional, wasn't it? Is that the one that's optional?
Which, well, that's part of what my point is, but the second part of my point is there seems to be a bit of contention out there between what they presented to you in the last workshop and what they on purpose or accidentally sent one of the local citizens. That they're trying to walk back is saying, well, we could expand it to be this size in the future. And somebody behind me, I think, has probably got the actual, paper given. So my question is there, are y'all saying that there's the ability under code by the state right now that y'all could request those plans and basically hold their feet to those plans, and if they're gonna change them, you have to be told before they can do something? Because those plans do include, or don't include fire suppression. Yeah, that's a question. I mean, it's an electrical facility. Does the state require some sort of?
I don't have the knowledge or authorities for the inspection of an electrical facility installation. I mean, if it's just that. That's the same as, I wouldn't go into a new build, a new construction of a building, I don't know, a grocery store and inspect their electrical system. I'm not an electrical inspector.
Right.
So I wouldn't have, they wouldn't permit that with me because I don't have the authority or knowledge base for that type of inspection to say that's.
Under 855, there's some component over there of.
So 855 would, that's where I was explaining that based on the size of the install, it would determine, if you're just gonna have one battery, let's say out there, of this particular size, then no, there's no fire suppression required. Possibly for 855. But if you're gonna have 2,000 batteries in one room or one canister, then yes, you need a fire suppression system of this size to cover, for these batteries.
But if the design they've accidentally given to the public is much larger than what they gave you. And so you're talking about per however many batteries, I think there are over 1,000 batteries in one container, but the number of containers looks to be 3 times what they told you about. Which is what Explorer's got a bone of contention with right now.
So technically,
it's not Disneyland. but
the
it
way
makes Six
a
Flags.
construction of project of any type should go is you should have a site submittal that would be something that would just show a general site construction. This is what the project is, and it's gonna have this type of stuff there, right? Whether it's just a hotel, a house, a battery installation, but this is what we're putting here, and it's gonna have this. From there, everybody plugs in, well, you're gonna need this kind of access, and you're gonna need this type of fire suppression, you'll need this type of plumbing, this type of drainage, this type of that. I mean, all that stuff then gets figured in of what's gonna be required, because this is what you wanna put there.
But if you're
So there's no site review, so that, some kind of site plan should be submitted. Of what the initial project should be.
But Camden County requests that site plan, because if it's not 100-room hotel and suddenly you go out there and it's a 500-room hotel.
Correct. We have.
Which is basically the design that they're trying to walk, they're trying to say, oh, well, that's a future plan, but they want to say what the future is. Is the future halfway through construction? Or is the future, oops, we changed it when we started building it? What can the county request from them truthfully to provide?
I believe
Because
that's
you're
in
saying at some
the,
point, at some threshold,
that's gonna be in the chapter 233 of the county regulation of housing and other structures of the court requesting for plans.
so the court can request that now.
Honestly, I would have to read all through this.
Understood. But
I
the
mean,
court, I'm just trying to.
but I think that's spelled out in here. Because that part is not my job. My job isn't the whether they build 500 rooms or not. My part is concerning, did they put a fire suppression in the 500 rooms or not?
Well, that sounds like it, as you're walking into it blindly, you don't know what gets you to the scene. I mean, I worked in the whole field and we build facilities all the time and we got to know every single nut and bolt that goes on every plan. You just can't come in and contractor can't come in and say, well, I'm gonna throw this in too. No, you're not.
Agreed.
I mean, how do you know? I mean, they're not gonna try to blindside you and add more to it. Oh, well, y'all know this now.
Also, the fire, if the fire marshal doesn't know what chemicals are in it or the fire suppression itself, they know which one to use properly, if they don't have a plan to show the chemical property. They know how to handle that.
Well, that's why I have to submit plans.
The plans would include the chemicals within the makeup of them.
Well, the plans, we hold them accountable for what they submit and what we approve. Then we do a field inspection. If we find something different than what we approved, then that's when we have problems and we go through the process of, hey, this isn't what has been approved. We failed the inspection and we go through the process of either stopping the job or, closing things down or whatever it means that is.
But to approve it, you gotta find out what you're approving. You gotta know in advance what you're going to do, to know if you're approved.
And from what I was told by Michael O'Brien over that for the coding is that each one is different and it can directly affect it. So the fire suppression only works on things for that specific chemical. So you should put it optional, but if it isn't relevant to what's in it, it's not helpful regardless.
Let me address that real fast. So what happens is the sprinkler contractor would get whatever the makeup is of the batteries or structure or whatever. And they design that sprinkler system for what that hazard is.
And that be incorporated in the plan.
Yes, and he would be approving the plan for the sprinkler side, the fire alarm, whatever the fire protection system is required.
And it will show you that.
Yes,
Okay.
and that sprinkler contract is also held making sure that it's done right as well. So you have more than one set of eyes looking at different projects.
And to be specific here, we're talking about the fire suppression system that is part of the environmental controls for each container. Because if the environmental controls fail, then that's when that is get too hard and that whole piece starts. And that is a concern that they said it's options
Right.
that we're talking about. Okay, it's optional for each battery, but how many batteries are we going to be there? And again, I'm going back to what's the threshold for how. When you can say, no, you said it was gonna get this design, hoping this board can ask. And are they building it to that? And I'm sorry, I just, over the years of listening to these guys, they tend to ask for forgiveness instead of permission.
Sean. Couple of questions. We talked about fire suppression. But from everything I've heard so far, can't put the fire out. So what, I'm asking you, when you talk about fire suppression, that's fire suppression for what?
So these, from my understanding, this would be a chemical suppression system, chemical-based suppression system, not a water-based suppression. We're talking about you can't use enough water, takes copious amounts of water to put these things out, and we don't have, in this, I stated before, in rural areas, water supply is scarce. If these guys ran into a Tesla car that's on fire on 859, they're gonna have a hard time putting that out. Sure. Because they're not gonna get enough tanker cars to keep coming to bring water. And then good luck getting the tow truck to pick it up and haul it back to their yard. You know, so there's gonna be a problem with that. But this is gonna be a chemical suppression that's designed to apply chemical agents to the batteries, not just water.
Okay.
You say, so it operates differently.
So there
So-
is, yeah, sure, so, but there is a way to put one out, sorry.
Like, they said.
The suppression equipment is for the ancillary equipment, the coolers and things like that. It's not for the battery.
Right.
Chemical suppression.
There is.
But that was like, but they had no suppression.
Correct. That's correct.
Exactly, for days.
But yeah, the point is what causes the batteries generally, other than a faulty battery in this whole big pack. For a battery to fail is they get too hot. And so the side piece of that in the diagram that y'all have is the environmental cooling system to keep it from getting above a certain temperature. So there's some, they may not, it's optional, they may not have that in there. So anything that can protect those batteries should be there. Surprised the counties, or I'm wondering if.
But again, the fire suppression is not for the batteries. The fire suppression is for that, the chiller and the things that are in the
Because the
insulator.
chiller doesn't work, the batteries get too hot, then you capture.
Does
But
the county have a say so whether that's optional or not?
That's gonna go back to this MPA 855, which I'm sure Fire Marshal Davis plans to give a thorough dig through.
855 is not gonna give us authority to say you can't put that there. It's only gonna give us the requirements of, if you're doing this, these are the parameters by which you must follow in the construction of.
Yes, sir. So that will tell us what fire prevention system will be required then,
if any,
if any.
So at state level. Let's say they want to put a sprinkler system in, they would have to provide us a fire protection engineer document of what their alternative means of compliance is, meeting that same level of protection. That what that sprinkler system and fire alarm system would do. And then we would take that under advisement, we could either agree to it or not. So that's how we would do that at the state. How y'all do it here, that'd be entirely, you know, thoughts.
If the county could.
They could.
So we can make it to where it's not an option.
That's
We intend, as far as I know, being the outgoing fire marshal, we would intend to hold them to the requirements of 855. We have to get the plans to know what to hold them to though. Exactly.
But 855 is a minimum requirement, right?
Correct. Any NFPA standard is a minimum standard. Any code standard is a minimum standard. That's nationwide on anything.
So and I'm sorry, I'm asking a few questions, Sean. You said you don't inspect electric. Basically, is that correct? Your department,
Yes, sir.
who would? Who would you?
The county doesn't have an employee building inspector.
Okay, well, I mean, for this proposed facility, who would be the inspector?
I don't have the answer to, I don't know.
Well, it seems like to me, that's kind of numero uno, we didn't figure out. I mean, how are we gonna, I'm not blaming you for anything at all, I'm asking Chuck too. How do we know they're in code if we don't even know who's inspecting?
We don't, but I mean, let's flip this to something, let's say, the Holiday Inn wants to build a resort in the middle of, in the county. And they build a 50-story hotel, I mean, and we're gonna let 1,000 people sleep in it. We no more have any employees in this county that's gonna inspect that thing for structure or anything else to know that it's sound and safe for everybody to go have a good time there.
Who would have that authority?
No one in this county right now. We don't have a code to go by.
I mean, I don't
Somebody
care-
out
I don't
there-
care
But these existing facilities have to have an inspector, the ones that are already existing now. Surely they have somebody that can do it, and we have to bring them in here.
And
Until we
in a
get
lot of
somebody
cases,
trained.
when you're building something,
Yeah.
in order to have it insured, your insurance, a lot of them, their insurance is gonna want to see that certain inspections were done throughout the construction process, that they passed certain things before it's insurable.
Is that in the permit? Commissioners or anybody know?
There is no permit.
So nothing's been permitted. here.
There is no permit. We've given no approval for anything.
There-
In order for us to have building inspectors here, we'd have to have adopted a code and put in the budget for building inspectors. And that's not something that, prior, there was discussion in 23 about a building code and it was, the people came out and said, we don't want you in our business. And, so that was first step.
Commissioner, I had a frac sand mine in Arkansas. And we had to get permission to blow our nose on that. You couldn't do anything. You couldn't move a blade of grass. Now, we're all hearing that, and you gentlemen are too, that construction starts. So, phase the 10th. How can they start construction without plans and or a permit?
If you were.
And I'm sorry. And not knowing who's gonna say, got it, that's it, those plans work, especially the electric.
If you owned 50 acres in the county here and you decided you wanted to use your money that you had saved up or you had a loan.
It'd be a while.
That even puts more in, is that it's not, you're not gonna go out there, and build something that's shoddy. It's your money. You're gonna be living there. You're gonna be working there. They are building this because they want to make a profit, not because their intent is to kill people. Not because their intent is to put this in so that they can make money, that they can return. And so the point is that it is in their best interest to build a facility that satisfies the people that are lending them money, the investors in their company, and they can't return a profit if right away it's going to burn down and kill wildlife and all.
In the moment, when you're talking to us about doing this.
Right, but
as you will know, everything sounds good in the moment. Oh, it's
absolutely.
gonna be safe. Nothing's gonna happen, your cows won't be hurt, your neighbors are gonna be fine. It just, there needs to be oversight of something, and I understand your point about it's private property. And we love private property rights,
That's right.
but this is a commercial endeavor.
That's correct.
In an electrical subsystem.
I'm not disagreeing with any of that. What I'm telling you is that not any of us want this. And we're looking for options and solutions. That's why we had this here today.
Yeah.
And we're in our questions regarding this. We're talking about the fire suppression system, and it doesn't talk at all about the rest of that electrical. We got to get a building code. We have to get inspectors. We have a lot of things that need to be done. But when budget time comes up and we start talking about whether or not we're going to increase the budget by a few pennies or increase the tax rate by a few pennies, then where do you go from there?
Last thing, and I'll shut up. My name's Chris Morris, I work for Senator Hall. He drove down Sunday night, he met with DCEQ and ERCOT yesterday. And today is probably right now meeting with PUC to see what if there's anything we can do. It looks like we'll probably have to have some new legislation, but you never know until it's up. So anyway, but thanks for taking all my questions. Appreciate it.
Well, is there a permit required to build a building in the county?
No,
No. Not, right? Is that
no,
correct?
that's correct.
So you talking about permits, there's no permit requirement.
And you said that if John Doe wants to build this to make money, Who says John Doe's gonna own it once it's completed? Who says John Doe's gonna manage it? It's on lease land, they can pick up and walk away at any time.
Just like they did in Van Wheeler with the solar. As soon as they built it, they sold it, and look how many fires have been out there. 75 runs just this year alone. What about last year? I mean, you have to look at every one of us in the face. If this was in your backyard, or what have you, because most of the people that built this, it's not in their backyard. They don't live anywhere close to one of these. And you get to look at each one of us in the face and say, you're expendable, and you're expendable, because your first question
No.
at that last workshop was, how much will this be worth on completion date? That was your first question.
Do you know why? Because we have a tax assessor here that needs that kind of information to determine how they're going to assess it. But that doesn't mean that I support it
It's always
or I
yours.
don't support
It's
it. And
always
so one thing that you have to remember is that each one of us that are up here believe that these are not good to have right here. They're not good to have sitting up next to a house. But you see, it's dereliction of duty to not get all of the information that we can possibly get. And that's why we continue to work on it, not just ignore
One
it.
thing, and I'm not trying to advocate against y'all about this, but something to keep in mind is when you're talking with utilities, because they're tying into utility, they're tying into power rates, right? And utility services, especially electrical companies, they don't care. They're not getting permission from anybody to do what they want to do. I mean, I do private work for Encore myself, and where I sit on their substations and guard, for security when they're expanding them and all. There's not a single inspector coming out there from a city or from a county looking at any of that work. They got their own people that look at it and give them the thumbs up for that. Encore don't care if the city approves it or not. Encore's, they're expanding their thing. That utility provider is expanding what they want to do for their utilities.
Correct,
And
but
do their
Belton Power doesn't care. They don't care about, they care about their government subsidies is what they're getting. I mean, the solar farm didn't even have to be connected to the grid in order to get these kickbacks from our federal government. So we all know, and they have already stated that they're gonna sell it as soon as they build it. It will not be kept
No,
up.
they said 5 years. They said 5 years.
Well, I know that the solar farm, it's.
I know, I'm just telling you, I'm interested in truth, not necessarily in just
So you're
conjecture.
interested in truth, but this comes from a company who has already kind of crapped on our county as it is. So you guys are taking their word for it at our expense.
Doc,
We don't. In defense, there is nothing in place in any county regulation to tell these people, you can't do that.
I get that.
I mean, if we were the city of Van Zandt, we not would have an ordinance or something to say, whoa, stop right there. You can't put that there. If you want to do that, you got to do this and you owe us this and we can't do that without this.
Respect that,
And
honestly,
we
but
can't.
we've already been down this road and I understand some of you were not here when we went down that road, but how many times do we get to be told that? Well, it was just, because we've heard it a lot. And I'm thinking if it was in your backyard with your kids, your grandchildren, or whatever, would each one of you really take that as your final answer? Because I know I wouldn't. I'd be moving heaven and hell to make sure that my family, my grandchildren's, and all of that were protected.
Doc, you had a comment, Doc?
Who's speaking, sir?
You are, yes. Go ahead, finish up, and then we'll let Doc speak. Okay.
I'm going to
Yeah.
the Needham fire. I was at that meeting this morning, so was Andy for most of it. Which yes, we need to know all the facts. I think we've gotten the cart before the horse, because I think we need to listen to what they have presented. They alleviated a lot of our things with firefighters as to what our obligations were, what our possible, get things queued, fire and all that. This company, you just need to hear from them. They had the engineer there. They could answer a lot of the questions that have been talked about right here. We're gonna have a good meeting, I hope, on the 17th. I would hope that somehow they would back off to alleviate everybody's angst and discuss it with you. I think everything that was talked about here is point on, there was a question for me to be in. We did ask them about the code, and they assured us that they were in compliance with all of it. I was under the assumption that they had to get permission from the county to go ahead and build it, but they did not. This is much like the solar plant down here. Close to it, and they didn't get permitted, evidently. And then build it, we didn't have anybody put there, inspect how they put it together. So, anyway, yeah, I hear what you're saying. We've got a situation here that we're gonna get our off to the court here, and they're gonna have to make a decision one way or another. I think they're gonna have to do. It looks like the law says that these folks can go ahead and even without permission, so.
There is a situation, and I think I talked to Kim about it last night. In wherever Bernie's at, Bernie and Kerrville, Kerr County and the other county. They have a thing called a 391. I'm not a lawyer. I know nothing about it, but I know they're going through the same thing that we're going through, and they have put a halt to it. They haven't put a stop to it, but I think they've kind of slowed the progression of it. That's all I know about it. I don't know how it goes from there, but from what I've read on it, and Cliff, you can help me on this, is it's not the government's. The government is not involved in it. It's the people that have to come together with that 391. And I just know a little bit about it, but that is an option from what I read.
Border watch situation. Kenny County down south.
Kendall County, yeah.
Put it together. And what it is they put the 391 mission together. All that did was fund them money to help fight the border situation. The laws were already on the books. Now, would this 391 allow citizens to go against state law? I don't know that that's the situation,
I don't know.
but I know that Kenny County got about $3 million. Help their border practice. So, yeah, that would be an option, but it would have to be explored.
But I don't think anybody on this court, I don't think I can speak for all before this. But the only way I know we would ever be able to stop it, you'd have to permit the whole county and regulate it all. And that's in y'all's shoes, I can see where y'all be for that 100%. And like you said, that once it's not effective, the 90% would chastise.
There's gonna be 5 here. It's not just this one. There's gonna be 5 in total. That's a lot.
Would it grandfather? Would it be, what is it, 8? Right, and it'd be 85, would that grandfather existing businesses or everything that this comes after?
So like the state codes adopted, you have in 101 life safety code, you have existing, you have new construction. So like you look at it is when that adoption is finalized, like the last 2021's edition we finalized September 1, 2023. But anything that was in design or built prior to that date would have to conform to the existing codes that were in place prior to that design or that build. Anything after that, we have to conform to new standards that were in place. So they would have to conform the 2020 edition of 855 and the 2021 edition of 111.
We can't put in our new codes because we don't qualify, correct?
I'm just saying about some miracle that after 255,000 people.
Smith County, yeah. If that was the case, then we could permit our own commercial codes.
Now, we fall under the state code, so that's active for us now.
Yes.
So the version of NFPA 885 that was in the 2021, that's currently active for us to utilize.
Yes, sir. So
So it's a matter
hypothetically,
of our fire marshal reviewing it and seeing what we can do with it.
correct. So hypothetically, if we can't stop this one, and like you said, there's 5 left, and say 2024 census comes out Smith County and there are 275,000 people, we could stop the other 4 by putting in the commercial codes and permits.
Not. That's gonna be up to your legal counsel, how y'all.
Couldn't necessarily stop them.
If they're in
They have more hoops to go through.
Okay.
I did have a conversation with Senator Hall this morning, and the question came up about the state code, that verbiage about adjoining counties of 250,000 or more. But if you go to the government census site, they project Smith County to be at 251,600 2025. So the question becomes in state code, what is the definition of the use of the 250,000? What point in time is it triggered? Is it triggered on just the every 10-year census, or is it triggered based upon the government's?
Yeah, I don't know when we can use it or not.
I guess the question
That's
is,
a
if it's
question.
possible, I would like the court to consider still looking at a commission to put together what would be used in an international fire code in the event this state law does trigger that the county put it on.
But if they comply with IFC, does it really help us to adopt IFC directly if they're gonna comply with IFC based on, and we can use our 855 inspections to determine whether they do or don't? It seems like it's more beneficial to either have zoning corridors or to have a building code that's
Yeah.
for commercial.
So IFC alone is not gonna do anything for
Stop.
another battery installation. You would need zoning ordinances and building codes and a whole lot. There's a lot way beyond my area of expertise even though.
Because your 855 is again on the fire side. It's not on the electrical or any of the rest of that plant.
It does nothing to do to say it can't be within so many feet of a residential structure or it's not gonna address any of that. That would be adopted ordinances for zoning restrictions and all that kind of stuff. So that's where your code adoptions would come into place. And I'm not sure that your 233, it says you can adopt fire code standards, I believe. I don't know where it gives you what other authorities, how deep that goes into zoning restrictions and regulations or not. That's way above any pay grade or knowledge I have on any development stuff.
But if they choose not to have fire suppression in these systems, then you believe under, will you check under 855 and see if that's something that we could apply for administrative hold until such time as they provide adequate fire suppression?
So the way that we would have to discover that is, we would have to see what they install. I mean, they're breaking ground, I guess, December, say, for lack of a better word, December 1st, they break ground. But there's dirt work, and I mean, that's before they set a battery out there, they're months away from that, so until we see what's there, they don't give me any drawings. We gotta wait and see what's there, and then if they stand at the gate and say, you're not coming in, down back here, I go see Tonda, and then we draw an administrative search warrant that forces me access to get to go in and break locks and see what's there, and then I compare it to 855, and I come back and then go before a judge showing that this is what we found. And then there's a court order, going that route with things, which is drawn out on the process. Well, and that meeting today, they stated they would not have time to made that statement.
And we did, and I think in the workshop, it's on the
video that they said they were not gonna put it in there.
Then that 855, didn't it say we could, have the plans first? Police, what David brought up, to show us what they're doing before they start.
So if this was coming to the state, we would be doing it based on a complaint of that establishment. So we would go out, we would look at their plans. I'm blessed because I have an electrical engineer on staff that does our fire investigation side. So I have a little bit of that expertise with it when we enter some of these facilities. But Sean, with 1 and 101, assess the minimum standards for the fire and life safety aspect. In those codes, it will direct you where it needs to go to 855. So if Sean goes out there and he sees some electrical violation that just kind of raises the hair in the back of his neck, what I would do is I would be on the phone with TDLR, Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, and ask the chief electrical inspector to come out and look at this and be sure it's code compliant. That's what we would do if we got in that situation.
I thought you said earlier that we could require to have the plans.
For the suppression system, fire alarms and all that. That's all under his purview on the life safety and protection systems.
So under the 391, if we can get EPA and EQ on board, which we have evidence that we can, could we also get one of those engineers to maintain inspections throughout the entire process along that way? If they appointed, we would, I don't have a model.
Maybe I'm stupid and don't understand legislation, but couldn't we, just like you were saying, you can't build this within 5 miles of a house. Couldn't this county put that into effect?
That's the
Is that-
state, though.
No?
Not that's the state, though. We have the Van Zandt County, we're a political subdivision in the state of Texas. We cannot overreach anywhere in the state of Texas. We can't, if the state of Texas says it's legal to do something, Van Zandt County can't come and say, can't do that in Van Zandt County, we're part of the state of Texas. Now, if you're an incorporated city, like he said, if we were the city of Van Zandt.
Yeah.
We were all one city, cities have more power in that incorporated cities than the counties do. We're just part of the state of Texas. That's why we tell y'all there's nothing we can do. As a commissioner, there's nothing I can do. As Keith Pearson, when I get out there with y'all, I can damn sure do something in my house. I can fight like y'all are, but I can't sit over here. If I do fight on this side when it's at my house, guess what they're gonna do? They're gonna immediately file official oppression on me. As an elected official, I'm going above and beyond doing something I have the authority to do, and they'll file official oppression on me. So you've got to look at where these guys are sitting up
I
here.
understand that.
You
That's why
know,
I asked the question.
Yes,
I
sir.
didn't understand.
Yes, sir. So I wish, now there is a few areas that they let us, we can control
Subdivision.
we can control a wrecking yard, they have to come to us and salvage yard.
That specifically said we have that ability.
If somebody wants to put one of these, whatever they're called, out on I-20, adults only, we have a little authority on that we can we have a little extra authority on, on-site sewer systems, things like that. They give us a little bit of overreach, but the majority of stuff, we can't, Van Zandt County can't say, this hotel can be here and this one can't be over here. I don't know if y'all wish we could, I don't know, everybody's got their own opinion, but we can't overreach. That's why we're desperately reaching out to Senator Hall. No, go down there and Austin, give us something, what we have from the public. And that's where it's going, and I'm not, don't think I'm dumping this in Bob's lap, but that's where it's gotta start. We've gotta have help, we've gotta have some law in the state of Texas that does this. Now, we do have special laws when we get real big. That's why if we were a big county, we could go to some of these other fire deals, but we're not there yet, folks. There's lots of rules for bigger counties that we don't qualify in.
Sean, you've been talking about the 1855. That going through and, once you started seeing what they had in place, you could check to do whatever. Did you say in the workshop though, you got a letter from their lawyers saying that they were not gonna allow you to inspect those facilities? They sent us an email saying they were not going to send us any plans to approve in front. But you said that you got a letter or something from their lawyer. Their lawyer responded to the email telling us that they will not be providing the drawings and, they will not be paying for any permits.
I have a good question for you now.
Yes, ma'am.
So what you're saying is that since, with regard to it is the NFPA, that since we do not have our own code here in Van Zandt County, that the law in Texas applies to us, and we can adopt that, is that how that
You do
works?
not have to adopt.
Okay, we don't have to, but it automatically applies.
Yes.
Okay, so this is interesting. If you take a look at 52.1.5, system commissioning and decommissioning of energy storage systems, it states, system commissioning of ESS shall be both of the following. Number one, performed in accordance with chapter 6 of NFPA 855. So it has to be in accordance with that. And number two, it says approved prior to putting the system into service. Who authorizes that approval? We, this person right here.
So I think you're talking about the fire protection and life safety system.
Okay.
And I'll be the first to tell you, I'm not fluid with 855.
Yes.
That's why I pay people below me to take care of
Well, that's why I think that this might be something, because this is in that with regard to the energy storage systems. And it's talking specifically about system commissioning and decommissioning, and it has the code 52.1.5, and it states the two things. It must be performed in accordance with chapter 6 of NFP or NFPA 855, and number two, it must be approved prior to putting the system into service. It also states that a commissioning plan meeting, the provisions of chapter 6 shall be provided to the building owner or the authorized agent and the AHJ. What is the AHJ?
Authority of jurisdiction.
Okay, well, there we have, I mean, this might be something. And it also talks about, they also, when they establish them, have to have a decommissioning plan as well. So it's not just commissioning, they have to have a decommissioning plan. It shall be both the following. Number one, prepared in accordance with chapter 8 of NFPA 855 and approved prior to putting the system into service. So what you're telling me is that if we fall under the regulations that we can adopt here in Van Zandt County, then this applies to us. And if our farm marshal gets that approval of the decommissioning plan and the commissioning plan, then it's up to the country. What? Exactly, if you have no plans.
But only for the fire suppression system. It's not a detailed design plan of everything in it.
It does not say anything about the fire suppressions. It says the system commissioning of ESS shall be both following. It doesn't say fire, it says the system commissioning.
It's not a subsystem, it's the system.
It is the system. Right, exactly.
We'll look closer at that, and it's not impossible for us to, as a, go right ahead then.
If this is an electrical setup on Van Zandt County property, why are we not talking to whoever is at the state that or wherever that would inspect to make sure that also that the electricity part of this is equally in line with what the regulations are with the state? I mean, we're talking about fire suppression, and obviously that's important. But if you've got electricity coming into this thing, which has got to be pretty big, why are we not talking about that as well?
That would be the Public Utilities Commission and other state agencies related like ERCOT and all those. That's not
I understand
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
not
mine.
mine.
But I understand that, but at the same time, I think these two issues have got to be looked at simultaneously. Because if the electrical is screwed up, what's gonna happen? We're gonna have fires. So, to me, it seems like those two things would have to be equally as important.
Well, and if the electrical components, they control the coolant on the units, there is no fire suppression, though, so that's my biggest concern. If that is an optional feature and they decide not to choose that feature, therefore the electrical components, that includes the sensors for their monitoring, that it controls everything, then that's a significant issue because of fires.
And also, on the electrical side, do they have requirements for this kind of a setup? Are there requirements that have to be met, such as the suppression? We don't know. But that's something that I think ought to be investigated.
We just don't know who's, we don't know how that, if I built a nuclear reactor on my land, I'm sure someone would inspect the electrical system. Is there any doubt? No. Who inspects that? You know, somebody has to inspect the electrical on any, that would seem like to me.
There are, I mean, even with, I'll refer back to like one floor building substations they're adding on, they have their what's called an FCC, which is a guy that's overseeing the job. And he's turning in, he's the inspector, and he is not necessarily he's an employee directly with the contractor that's doing the building. He is there to oversee the building, and he's signing his name off on that it's being built per the specs that it should be, that it's been approved and engineered by. And that guy's kind of the inspector putting his name to it. So I'm sure this job that has some kind of on-site engineer, inspector kind of person that is going to be signing off on something. I mean, none of this stuff happens with this kind of money involved. People's names are on all kinds of stuff. I mean, there's gonna be, everybody's gonna put liability somewhere.
But this is out of country into our public utility system
Yes,
with money from the federal government to help them out.
yes.
I mean, everything's wrong from that level down. These people don't even own the land.
Oil and gas companies that drill wells on people's land, they don't own the land either.
Pardon?
Oil and gas companies that drill horizontal wells at the tune of $10 million, they don't own the land either. They're just leasing. So this is, I wouldn't put too much stock in that, but the point is that the people from Finland are financing the deal. And I believe that as closer we get into it, I think Belltown, which has a terrible reputation here with us, I believe they're involved with this, and that's particularly bothersome.
They did that.
Commissioner Williams, if you go to the Secretary of State, you
Yes.
follow the track back.
Yep.
It was actually, there's two Belltown LLCs before it went under it. This one.
So that's,
Bring back to a question you made. It kind of caught me when you talked about. They're in it to make money.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, they're in it to make money apart from our pocketbooks, from the tax side of it.
they make money also from our pocketbooks by selling us electricity back at inflated
Exactly,
rates.
but if they're in it to make money in the long term, why would they be under three LLCs? One.
Well,
and
I
do they-
set up three, I set up series LLCs for people who have multiple rental properties. That's,
But what's their main concern gonna be if, I'm getting the impression, if there's no permitting like that, there's no way of requiring them to have insurance on this either, is there?
yeah, if the finance company doesn't require any insurance, they're foolish. The Finnish company is the finance company. That, that's what,
So,
that's what they're saying. And they've done a lot of other financing of energy projects, around the world. That's not too hard to follow up on, but, I think the key is that we need building codes and we need building inspectors. I think,
It's all started with the Green New Energy deal from the previous administration.
and we don't, and as an oil and gas guy, I don't care for green.
I'll have to go back and watch the video of the workshop.
Yeah.
And I may be totally confused, but that, same guy, Doc, that talked to y'all today, I was under the impression that the fire suppressant on the equipment was optional, and they were doing it. They were putting in that because they told you, yeah, they said, don't worry about that letter from that lawyer. We'll let you look at everything we're gonna do and let you inspect it. So I'm confused there. It is optional, but I thought they said they were doing it.
I think that guy said we're,
Not the batteries,
I think he
not the
said we're gonna
batteries.
look into
They
it.
said they're
He
not.
never said he's gonna do it.
He did say, Commissioner Pratt asked him specifically, will you let the fire marshal review? And he said, we'll be happy to let him see and look at what we install. And he never committed to
Okay.
letting us see plans.
And never committed to saying we are not, he didn't say we're gonna, he never said we're gonna do it.
I'll go back and watch it.
But I think that we have the ability as a commissioner's court to ask Tonda to reference the proper codes and say that according to NFPA 55, we have the right to see your plans, send them to us, or we're gonna get an administrative hold on you from the beginning.
Absolutely.
I don't see any problem with that. Just tell us what you're doing. If everything you're doing is just and fair and right, then show us what you're
They
doing.
shouldn't have a problem.
That's right.
Everything's great, and they shouldn't have a problem in it.
I will say this, we asked them, they showed the fire department all the bells and whistles you have to go through and the units you have to go do to shut down and that sort of thing. We asked them if we could come in as they built the facility and inspect it, look at it.
Is there a way that the county can ask these companies to pay decommissioning costs?
I believe that that's what that was saying. I believe that they have to have a decommissioning plan. But I don't think, I think what we can do in some other cases is ask for a decommissioning bond. And so we'll have to look a little closer at that and make sure that,
Because we know how often these companies change hands. So-
yeah. And the bond would have to. No, no, not a promise. Yeah, not a promise. I don't think that's acceptable, but I think we have to do a little bit more work related to that. We're not doing anything else, so I think I definitely can just look into the decommissioning bond.
Has anybody looked into how this is connected to the United Nations and the 2030 and the 30 by 30 land and water drought? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Any other questions? Thank you, guys.
It sure has been informative.
Thank you. Maybe we need to get the city of Fort Worth involved. Their runoff from those batteries would go into their water supply.
Well, and that is a big concern.
And folks have noticed. Yeah, that's right.
So how do we get the city of Fort Worth involved?
Well, I think that there are people in here that have already contacted Tarrant Regional Water.
Is there? I don't see anybody.
Has anybody in here contacted Tarrant Regional Water regarding? And the location of the system in relation to where.
There you go. It's at the top of the watershed.
Explorer, I spoke to their right-of-way manager and they said that, they have people that are out there, they're going out there, and as long as they're 50 feet off of their pipeline, then they really don't have a dog in this hunt. If they build any pad or they set anything over the top of that easement, Explorer has the right to go out there unilaterally and remove it. Just like they do with your trees. When you let your trees grow up over the top of their pipeline, they just come out there and cut it without your permission or knowledge. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I don't think those plats, et cetera, are exactly right. And Explorer won't allow their easement to be infringed upon. I can guarantee you that. Yeah, they'll push a building down if it's built over the top of it, I guarantee you. I've spoken personally to Explorer, and I know there are several others that have spoken with Explorer as well. And I think we're gonna keep getting them information because any pressure that they can put on them will be welcome.
You know, I talked to my personal attorney, and she said if something happened, Explorer to be one of the first people that she puts on the suit.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
you know, they've got the money to fight this, I don't think, so.
Well, to the extent that they're concerned about it, but you know, he told me, he said, look, as long as that we have 50 feet, and as long as they're off, they don't infringe on our 50 feet, then we are not gonna say anything to them. So that's dangerous to have those, you know, and you recall in the workshop, I said, I'm not as concerned about your batteries, just spontaneously combusting as I am somebody nicking that pipeline that has a jet fuel in it. And that jet fuel is gonna, you know, burn through all of your business and create a much larger. So.
And it didn't say he wasn't concerned. He's just like we are. It's outside of their parameters. 50 feet is all they can say. It doesn't mean that if they built up at 51 feet, that they're not gonna say time out. I kind of wish you wouldn't do that. I can't stop you, but you really shouldn't do that. You know,
My question was.
we have boundaries.
Yeah.
That's right.
Here is.
Yeah, those GIS. Yeah, those GIS guys, they get close, but. They don't get it right on. We see that in our tax maps.
And what have they said about the nuisance law, approaching it from that angle?
I don't know what the attorneys have said regarding approaching it from the nuisance thing. One of the key factors of a nuisance claim is standing. And courts throw things out, you hear that all the time, courts throw out lawsuits because the person that's bringing the lawsuit is they're not directly harmed. The folks that have a
Right.
nuisance claim against them are those folks that have property
Right.
buttoned up next to it, and those are the ones that can bring a nuisance.
Now, are the people that the 4 other locations cited for, are they aware that it's coming into their backyard, the ones
I
that
don't
might be
personally
flooded
know
up to
where
it?
I don't personally know where those other 4 or 5 locations are yet.
So no company has contacted you guys as far as where they are, who it is or anything?
You'll probably wait to see what happens in this one.
Let's show them something special.
No, we did much more about this.
David showed me, we looked at something out north of Wills Point on Arcot, was it on?
Archon GIS report, yeah,
Yeah.
there's 2 of them.
But nobody's come to us. He just found it from his investigation.
Is it for the power plants that were there that have shut down, like Thermal Springs and.
Anything positive. This is just one thing.
This thing is, it's I'm not for it at all, but this thing is designed for whenever the grid, and everybody's talking about how bad shape the grid's in. Is in a bad situation in a real bad winter storm or whatever. Now, it's not the only time it'd be used, but it'd be sitting there. And in case you use a generating plant, that's generated off fossil fuel, that goes down. It buys them 2 hours. They can throw this thing on the line and keep your electricity, all of our electricity is gonna be thrown onto the grid for 2 hours.
Can residents in this county, it just kind of goes, yeah.
It'd be everybody. It'd be,
Yeah.
It's lines that come, you know, already draw close to the switch.
Right.
it's going on to the grid, so it's gonna go to everybody. It could go to any one of us. So that's the only thing. You said positive, it might save somebody's electricity from going off for the one.
Every week, every hour.
2 hours
Per charge?
per charge.
Yeah. Per charge. Yeah.
I don't know, he didn't,
Been over 60%.
These are charged off the grid.
Yeah.
What they do is takes a little amount of, just like a battery on your car. Takes a little bit amount from the alternator and charge that battery.
Yeah.
A real small wire. Then you've got a big cable going down to the starter. So it takes less electricity to charge them, and then they're sitting there charged up, if they can pull greater amounts of electricity onto the grid. And we're all, if you buy electricity, you're connected to the grid. And so any one of us could be getting some, all of us may be getting power from wind turbines in West Texas, or from wind turbines out in the Gulf, or a solar panel in Venezuela. Who knows? It's all pitched onto the grid and taking off.
We also have a transmission line for it, that much power.
I'm gonna tell.
So if the, okay, so if the power went down and they're sitting up there 2 hours, how are they gonna recharge their batteries if there's no power? And there's no, they can't.
I'll let her answer that. She seems to know.
They have to rebuild the energy by getting it back there. So they can't overcharge or undercharge because then it's causing the fire. So where they hold it based on use, it depends on if they can get it back there and have to, if there's transmission on it.
So it could take a long time.
And then, yeah,
Like after a tornado, it could take a really.
very long time. And like,
Well,
we're at how
that's another concern.
So that's pretty risky to make.
Any other questions? Dan?
Yeah, when they're paying 40 million and another company's paying 40 million.
Before you have to get away?
Bullshit.
We know it's.
Yes, ma'am.
What has happened in other counties with this particular company?
With this company or with this type of system they designed to go in?
That, with that vendor, I guess you'd call it.
Belltown Power does, I don't know if they have scrubbed the internet with any kind of bad business or whatever, but anything that I have certainly personally dug into, not finding, whereas I know when Pattern came in here, there was dozens of bad claims against them and stories across, not just here, but Canada and other countries, so. Well, and that's another thing, there's so many LLCs, and there's so many shell companies that it's hard to say when they continue to do that.
Claire, did you have any information on the company itself?
You know, when I asked we had a Zoom call with the engineer, and I asked the engineer, how many have they installed and do they have any online? And he really didn't answer the question.
Yeah, we asked him that question this morning, they've been in it 17 years.
And how many files?
Two.
They don't they just have written interview facilities, not bad facilities?
Is that a facility similar to what's going here, Doc?
Doc,
Is that a facility like what's going here? Or is that some other?
Yeah, that's their technology.
because who you were talking to today was the battery fire.
As well as the.
Okay.
All right. Did you have a question? since seems like we're coming to an end, what are gonna be the action steps that you're gonna recommend? And can we be told about it?
Basically, Chief, you were saying that if somebody made a complaint, that would trigger an immediate investigation by the fire marshal. That's right.
However, they have, there are situations that are very negative.
I'll make a complaint. So we can trigger at least investigation. It seems like we need a strategy immediately to at least make a delay. We can put together a strategy to prevent this facility and then move on to prevent the remaining facilities via legislation. Senator Hall. Right, so I'm just looking for, everybody spent a lot of time, you spent a lot of time. I'd like to leave here with some action steps that we can take to at least delay this groundbreaking. In any way, smoke screen, something that we can use for a delay.
Yes.
Well, according to her 855, we need to see plans before they can start.
Great, so.
Do you have the doc, whatever it was for?
No,
it's state code.
Since we don't have.
It's already here.
8,000. We have to say.
I think the first step, sir, will be for our fire marshal to familiarize himself with it 855 and see exactly what we can do with that, and then we know where to go from there.
Is there anybody at the state that we can call that gets up to speed? For fire marshal,
I will take it myself and my deputy chief over inspection and engineering works real closely with Sean. So if he has all the help. Yeah, I still live here. So, yeah. Born and raised here, I'm not planning on leaving anytime soon.
Sean?
Once he goes through it and finds out, we can move to that level. And just go.
We posted a job posting. And yes, ma'am, we're in the process.
And he's our head fire marshal. We do have other people in his office.
So if you step out on whatever your final date is, then there are other people you're saying.
There's two deputies.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, we don't have it on now, we got it.
Yes, thank you so much.
We got-
Appreciate it.
Over the
Thank you.
next-
That, I thought you had your hair.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Thanks, man.
I love it. I don't want you building anything. Don't live through it. Just to come out on it.
Well, nobody's gonna inspect it, so I'm good.
Yeah.
Well, me too.
Well, I didn't know. There's no way about
Gotta use it, man.
Hopefully.
Hey, thank you.